Welcome back to The Explainer, everyone. Today, we're moving past the initial shock of quantum mechanics and looking straight at the machinery underneath. This is General Emergence Mechanics Part 2. We are looking at the actual mechanism behind the mystery and unpacking the exact architecture of reality. So, just to quickly recap, in Part 1, we made the double slit experiment sane. We established a firm, undeniable ground rule. It's not magic. There's no mystical consciousness creating reality just by looking at it. And we definitely don't have tiny particles making spooky little decisions about where to go. But, clearing the air like that left us with a much deeper question. If the double slit isn't magic, then what on earth is it? Okay, let's dive right into this. Here's your answer. The double slit is, fundamentally, a detailed route map. It isn't a story about a single particle's journey. It is literally a map of the universe's available pathways. So today, we're going to explore exactly how this map is drawn and how nature navigates it. Let's start with bright, dark, and data. We need to look closely at what we actually see on the detector when this experiment runs. Most explanations out there will immediately point you to the bright bands in an interference pattern. They point and say, look, that's where the particle arrived. But to truly understand the mechanism here, we have to pivot our focus. We need to look at the dark bands too. They might actually be more important. Notice the stark contrast. A bright band tells us a route survived, but a dark band means the route was refused. And a dark band isn't just empty space where nothing happened. It is a highly structured absence. It's a specific place where possible routes existed, but physically could not survive into the final pattern. And that means the forbidden route is data. I really want to pause for a second and let that sink in. The interference pattern is not just a collection of successful hits. It's a ledger of selection. It maps out allowed and disallowed route families. Where a route cancels, closes, or fails to persist, that failure is absolutely crucial data, revealing the structure of the quantum world. This brings us to the wrong picture. If we want to grasp this, we have to discard some really common misconceptions. We have to completely erase the cartoonish idea of a tiny bullet flying towards two holes, stopping, and asking itself, which slit shall I choose? It's a fundamentally incorrect picture. The reality is not a bullet choosing. It is a route space filtering. The experiment doesn't create one little road for a microscopic pebble. It creates an entire space of possible routes. Within that space, some routes remain coherent, some cancel each other out, some close entirely, and some survive long enough to hit the detector. Which leads us to the core mechanism. Geometry permits, environment closes. This is the beautiful, disciplined reality of quantum interference. No ghosts in the machine, just pure, rigorous structure. Let's break down exactly how this sequence plays out. Step 1, boundary conditions, like the slits or gratings, open up a route space. They act as the initial gates. Step 2, phase relationships decide whether those interacting routes will reinforce or cancel each other out. And finally, step 3, environmental interaction actually settles the outcomes. If a route makes contact with something in the environment, stray gas molecules, thermal radiation, or a measurement device, it loses its quantum coherence. The route space collapses right back into an ordinary, classical-looking outcome. So the crucial point here is really these 3 core truths. I want you to let these permanently shift your mental model. The particle does not choose. The geometry permits. The environment closes. This isn't just a physical process. It is a fundamental reframing of how reality operates. Now that we've got the proper, non-magical framework, let's look at what happens when the map gets bigger. We are going to anchor this in a massive milestone from a 2026 Nature paper. This is extreme modern science. Here are the restrained scientific facts of their multi-scale cluster interference experiment. The material, sodium nanoparticles. The method, Talbot-Lowe interferometry, using ultraviolet light as diffraction gratings. The grating period was an incredibly precise 133 nanometers. Basically, researchers fired massive metal clusters through these optical gates to see if our route map still applies at a larger scale. 7,000. Let that number register for a moment. We're not talking about single electrons or tiny helium atoms here. These are complex, solid material clusters containing more than 7,000 atoms. That is a tangible, nanometer-sized piece of metal entering this route geometry. And those 7,000 atoms represent a mass of over 170,000 daltons.
To put that into perspective for you, that's heavier than many complex biological proteins. Yet, even at this immense scale, the interference fringes remained sharp. The quantum coherence actually survived.
Which gives us this remarkable figure, 15.5. This is the macroscopicity measure, or mu, that they achieved. It surpasses all previous experiments by an entire order of magnitude. It mathematically proves that our framework, geometry permits, environment closes, absolutely works at an unprecedented macroscopic scale. So, what does this all mean? Simply put, the root map got bigger. This does not mean a particle suddenly became mystical. It definitely doesn't mean a tiny object turned into a cartoon cat magically existing in two everyday places at once. It just means that quantum coherence, that ability for multiple routes to remain open and interacting, survived in a much larger, more complex material system than our classical intuition expects. And that brings us to roots, not magical cats. When experimental setups get this huge, it's pretty common for people to use colorful language, but we are going to stick to our disciplined, faculty-safe approach. The Nature paper describes the state directly with this quote: "A macroscopic object that defies intuition because it involves a superposition of classically distinct trajectories." Now, they might compare it to a Schrödinger's cat state, but look closely at the actual words. It is simply describing classically distinct trajectory branches, say root A and root B, separated by 133 nanometers, remaining as part of one coherent wave description. The important word there isn't cat. The really important word is root. The object didn't become magical. The root simply hasn't been forced to settle yet by the environment. It remains coherent. It still belongs to the pattern. The only difference is that at 170,000 daltons, the unbroken root map just got much, much harder to ignore. Which leaves us with this haunting question to consider as we wrap up. If a massive, complex cluster of 7,000 atoms can navigate this map without breaking coherence, what happens when the route map gets even larger? When exactly does the environment inevitably force the map to close? It really leaves you in absolute awe of nature's scale, doesn't it? Thank you so much for exploring this explainer with me today, and as always, keep questioning the boundaries of our reality.